thank you all for joining this evening. So tonight's session is all around maximising your health and your budget. So I'm Liam. I'm one of our senior nutritionists in our central weight management team. We also have Caroline, who's one of our senior nutritionists on the central weight management team as well. Okay, so the aims of our session then, we're going to be looking at making sure that we're giving you as much value as we possibly can. So we're going to be looking at some tips on shopping, how we can go about saving money on our food shopping. We're looking at some of the benefits of meal planning, looking at batch cooking and some of the costs of different appliances that we're going to be using in the kitchen. We're going to go through some handy tips on safety and hygiene. We're going to look at some resources on food waste and how we can go about reducing it. And then we've also got our section. So we've got our nutrition section and we've got an exercise section. So some tips on how to go about doing your exercise on a budget. Then we've got a well-being section. So we have Laura, who's not with us tonight, but it's a pre-recorded message. So we'll hand over to Laura virtually when the time comes. And then we'll summarize our session with some resources as we go. So just as we're going along with this, obviously, this isn't going to be necessarily a definitive way to how you have to go about planning all your food shopping and everything. And there's going to be lots of other tips and things that you could do that we might not necessarily be sharing. So if you do have anything that you would add to these things, or you've got your own kind of tips how to go about saving money on your food, obviously, with the times and stuff, obviously everyone's probably keeping a bit of an eye on things. So if you have got any kind of helpful tips that you found, feel free to pop them in the chat box or in the Q&A. But we'll obviously have a bit of a time at the end as well to have a bit of a Q&A. If you have any questions, if you pop them in the Q&A or in the chat box as we go. Okay, so I'm going to hand you over to Caroline now.
Hi everybody, welcome. So we thought we'd start this webinar by looking at the cost of living crisis and why we're in it and what's happening. So as the world began to reopen following COVID-19 lockdowns, we saw the demand for a sudden surge in the demand for food, and this resulted in price rises and shortages in supply chain distribution, not only in food, but in resources and materials involved in its production, such as energy, fertilizer, and animal feed as well. So production costs increased with fewer workers to fill these roles in food production. And this, along with people's wages failing to rise, along with price rises, all contributed to what we can see on the Food Foundation's annual Consumer Process Index here, which highlights the steep rise in food and non-alcoholic beverages and the increase of overall inflation. So you can see it's from around December 2022, but we know that those have continued to increase, and the difference between overall inflation and how much more food and non-alcoholic beverages are. So let's look at some on the next slide. Let's look at some ideas for inside the kitchen and ways we can reduce the cost. So what practical things can we do to save money on the budget when it comes to food inside the kitchen? So we're looking at meal planning, stocking up on cheap basics and making lists as you do this so you don't duplicate them, using recipe books and videos, batch cooking, using lower cost kitchen appliances, which we'll look at, such as slow cookers, and storing food properly to preserve it as long as we can, and perhaps trying things like a meat-free day a week. So we'll delve into those in a little bit more detail. And then, first of all, let's look at the evidence. So there is a body of evidence. You can just click on that, Liam, that'd be great, thank you. So there's a body of evidence, and I've listed two studies here, that they're two among many that show the benefits of meal planning and the significance of long-term weight loss. So in these two particular studies, these saw 4 to 5% of body weight reduction over multiple years for participants that are mentioned in these particular studies. Now, the evidence strongly shows that the key components for successful long-term weight management are meal planning ahead of time, as well as self-monitoring of weight, food intake and calories, and choosing lower option food calories in these meal plans. So meal planning can help you manage your spending each week. It allows you to set and stay within a budget, and also being clever with ingredients, so only buying the things that you need. So you're not running out to convenient places which are usually more expensive, and you'll often, one bit will lead to another bit and so on. And before you know it, you're shopping, you've gone out to spend £2 and you've ended up spending 15, for example. So it gives you keeps you within the budget. So Liam's going to go on now and help you just explain a little bit more about meal planning.
Yeah, that's kind. So this is quite a practical example for how I go about planning my meals at home. So I'm in a family of myself, my wife, and our 2-year-old son, Alex. So it can be a little bit difficult at times accommodating everybody. So I use this free-to-use app, which is called Mealboard. It's a really easy to use. It kind of replicates a calendar that you have in your iPhone. And you can just put in your meals in advance on each day of the week. You can put in as many meals as you want to do. I only ever kind of go for my evening meals and plan things around that way. And the kind of way that you can see it on the picture there is if you're planning your meals like this, you can accommodate things like batch cooking, how to go about using your leftovers. So on the 5th of November, we're having roast chicken. And then with that chicken left over, we're going to be making stir-fried chicken. Nice and easy, quick tea that we're making use of those leftovers. On days that we have a bit more time, like the weekends, on a Saturday, that's when we'll typically do our batch cook. So things like a chili con carne, a fish pie, we'll then freeze, and then we'll put those into the weeks coming up. So Wednesday nights for us are a bit of a nightmare. My wife Keely works quite late, I work quite late, and then we've also got nursery pickup to throw into the mix. So on a Wednesday evening, it's a very quick and easy frozen meal that we just pop in the microwave and we're good to go. So one of the things that are really handy about planning these meals and looking at things in advance is it helps when it comes to shopping to only buy what it is that I actually need, and whether that's shopping in store or online. Having that meal plan and knowing what ingredients you actually need, it helps you kind of prevent going shopping when you've not got anything in mind, and or you might not have anything in at all, and you've got to go shopping, and that's where you can kind of make those incorrect decisions and you end up buying stuff that might not be the healthiest of choices just out of convenience. So having that kind of meal plan can be really helpful for that. I'm not too neurotic on it. I don't put too much in advance. So you can see that I've got 2 sample weeks there, and then obviously the 3rd week I won't go that far because the mood can change a little bit with what we want to eat. So this is just an example really when it comes to using your meal planning. So I use the Mealboard. It is free to download on either your Android or your Apple phone. But there are other ways in which you can do it that the same kind of principle applies. So you can just use a pen and paper. You can use the note section of your phone. There's also things these days where you can put like planners on your fridge. It's like magnetic ones, which obviously do cost a bit of money, but a bit of pen and paper can also go to the same event. We also have things that we can have at ABL as well, where we have these sample meal planners and blank meal planners. So we can send those out in the resources afterwards as well. Okay, so that's just an example of how I do things. Obviously, not necessarily the best way. You've got other ways in which you can help planning meals, but the concept of meal planning can be really, really useful. So I'll hand you back over to Caroline.
That's great. So one of the other items on the in-kitchen tips was for batch cooking. So batch cooking is a fantastic way to save money, and it gives you an opportunity to plan healthy meals which can be ready as and when you need them. So batch cooking just means preparing and cooking meals in larger amounts and then storing it for later. So we have some recipe suggestions coming up and a bit more on batch cooking, but 5 easy steps to get you started. First of all, to shop your ingredients. So choose your ingredients, don't overbuy and keep to plan, and then get your ingredients ready. So chop board out, get them all ready, washed down and prepared, and then cook in big batches. This is where your big cookware will come in handy. So 1 large pan, all your ingredients in, and then portion out your meals and store for later. So we've got different ways you can store them. Everything needs to be cooled down for around about 90 minutes, 1 to 2 hours before putting them in your fridge, which needs to be at 0 to 5 degrees. And leftovers can be stored in here and eaten within 3 to 4 days. Food can also be stored in the freezer for up to 4 to 12 months. And then your freezer needs to be set between 18 and 24 degrees for these to be at the best temperature for storage. And then moving on. So we've got different kitchen appliances and different costs here. So with an eye on rising bills, everyone seems to be looking for cheaper ways to save on their budget. So recently, consumers have been purchasing 53% more of alternative cooking appliances to your electrical oven. These appliances include slow cookers, air fryers, and sandwich makers because they generally use less energy. So typically, the electric oven uses about 63p per hour, which on average, using it an hour a day for 7 days a week, is around about £229, £230 a month. It's the most expensive way. Air fryers come in cheaper at 48p per hour, which is around £174 to £175 a year. Microwaves 32p per hour, which is about £117 per year. And then the cheapest option being the slow cooker, which uses just 6p an hour, and averaging around about £21 a year to heat your food using this. However, it is worth considering the air fryer. You need less time than electrical oven, so you'll save that way. And then the slow cooker will need to be used for longer periods of time because it's slow cooking the food. But even if you triple the amount of time, it still comes in cheaper annually for the other items. So some other tips, which is important when you're using these items that will save you money, for example, is use the right size pan and with a lid, because the lid will make it heat up quicker and you'll use less energy on the oven or the cooker, the hob, and it will cook quicker. And then we've got an electrical pressure cooker. These cook things more quickly and they use less energy, and you can use cheaper cuts of meat in these. And slow cookers, like we've discussed, are probably the cheapest option, and they also save on preparation time and washing up as well because they're super easy. So let's look at batch cooking in a bit more detail on the next slide. So we have a video here. We wanted to show you some ingredients of the batch cooking, and I had them in my kitchen at the time. So I thought I'll just put a video together of my kitchen, me with food that I would cook my family. And I do this regularly. So if you want to press play on there, Liam.
Hi everyone, so we have in our recipe resources a spaghetti bolognese. So I thought I would show you the ingredients for that and just a quick explanation of how I would batch cook it. So the bulk of the ingredients would be, and the most expensive part would be the mince. This is 750 grams, but you can replace it with corn or vegetables.
Turn the sound up on that, Liam, by any chance.
And then the sauce would be made up with carrots and celery. I would use 2 of those finely chopped, and then onion and garlic. And I would just go into my herbs and spices cupboard, and I've got all dried herbs and spices which cost really cheap. You'd only use half a teaspoon to a teaspoonful. So we've got Italian seasoning, basil and some oregano. They're all from Tesco. And then I would just put bits of pepper in and a pinch of salt for flavour. And then I would use a stock cube, so you could use beef or vegetable for that as well, just for a bit of flavouring, and then some chopped tomatoes. So that would be all the ingredients, and that would make 8 portions for me. So I would section it off into 2 separate parts. The only equipment that you need is a chopping board and a knife, and then this is the big pan that I would use to cook it, and that's amply big enough for 8 portions. You could also cook it in a slow cooker, depending on your day and how much time you've got. So once that's all cooked up, you can pop it in these Tupperware boxes, which can be stored in the fridge. You can eat up to 3 to 4 days time, or you can pop them in the freezer, and those would last for 4 to 12 months. And there's one I've prepared earlier. So this is what I do. I just pop them in. This is a chili con carne, and that's enough for 4 meals. And I would take that out 24 hours before I wanted it, and I would defrost it in the fridge. We've got some more hygiene tips coming up.
Okay, so just to look at price-wise, is this batch of food here, including a pinch of herbs, cost about £6.63. At the moment, prices can vary up and down. So per portion, so that divided into 8 meals, which I do on a regular basis, and they're ample for an adult size portion. So it costs around 82p, which when we looked at the Tesco's ready meal, that was about £3.25. So it worked out at £2.43 per portion saving, which I thought was quite considerable. And it's something that if you would consider doing this, it will save you a lot of money, and it's much healthier as well. Okay, next slide. Let's look at some food hygiene tips. So if these budget saving tips are making you feel like you would try cooking or preparing some of the meals for yourself, There's a few things to remember for food hygiene and safety, so that we want to avoid contamination or a buildup of bacteria, which could cause stomach upsets. So when preparing food, we need to make sure that clothes are tied up and there's no sleeves dangling on the surfaces or in food, hair's tied back, nails are short and clean, and jewellery is removed so that there's no bugs or germs on those things. Headscarves are secure, and that everything that we use is clean, like an apron and tea towels and things like that. So high risk foods, so things that where bacteria can grow really quickly on, are things like dairy products. So we've got custards and creams and milks, meat and poultry, seafood, cooked rice and cooked pasta, sliced meats, like delicatessen meats, and then prepared salads and things like coleslaw and pasta and rice salads as well. These are all foods that we just need to make sure are refrigerated. It's under 5 degrees Celsius in our fridge, and that they spend as little time as possible outside the fridge when we're preparing things, just to keep them as safe and hygienic as possible. And then also check all the dates on your food, make sure everything's in date and that you're not putting allergen foods together or near each other, keep them separately, and all hot foods are cooled properly as well, and they're stored in the fridge. And again, the cooling time about 90 minutes, an hour to 2 hours. A few more things on food hygiene here, just really simple things. If you're not used to preparing food, they're just things to consider, which would be to use oven gloves when we're handling hot items, to make sure that we're testing things hygienically. So we change the spoon every time we pop it in, and they're licking fingers and whilst you're cooking, and to make sure the temperature of your fridge is right, which we've covered, and that there's no damage, cracks or chips on any of your materials that you're using when you're storing this food, because bacteria can hide into the cracks of things. So just to make sure there's nothing like that. And then all aprons and tea towels are clean, that foods are chilled properly for the harmful bacteria, which we've discussed. And then not to overfill your fridge. Make sure you're leaving space between the items so that air can circulate and it maintains the right temperature. And that freezing foods will pause the lifespan of the foods. So just make sure that everything's frozen by midnight on the day of the use by date, and that all leftovers are cooled down and frozen and popped into the freezer as well. And then one thing on the fridge also, if you store raw items on the bottom shelf and then any cooked items above those, so again, the bacteria from the raw items can't transfer onto the cooked. And then moving on. Okay, so these are now budget tips for outside of the kitchen. So we've covered inside and looked at those. So how can we save money on the outside? So things that we're looking at are shopping seasonally for fruit and vegetables, looking at the reduced section in supermarkets and shopping locally and not necessarily going into supermarkets, not focusing on brands too much, using own brands of supermarkets, which are often high quality, not much difference in taste, but a lot cheaper in price. Trying discounted subscriptions, and then looking for loyalty schemes and membership cards, reducing waste, which is a big one, we're going to cover it, and looking for coupons and deals online and buying in bulk. So let's go into that a little bit more. So shopping seasonally, while there are plenty of benefits to consuming frozen and tinned fruit and vegetables, for example, it's a great way of including a bigger variety of plants into your diet. And these are stored for long periods of time and they can be consumed out of season and they're often a lot cheaper. Some people do prefer produce that is fresh. So if this is the case, eating seasonally, which means eating foods that are naturally ripe and ready for harvest in your local area, which the BDA, the British Dietetic Association, have provided us with a really handy guide. If you click on, we'll provide these resources for you, but they will show you what's in season and what's not. What happens is when the things are produced out of season, They've been grown and managed in conditions where they need to be transported. It costs more for this, and it's reflected in the prices in the supermarket. When things are seasonally, they're more nutritious. They've not travelled in transport. They're not spoiled, and they're often reflected in supermarket prices. So seasonal items will be a little bit cheaper. So use that resource if that's something that you want to do, is eat fresh and seasonally. Okay, so what we did on this one was look at the major supermarkets, and we've got a basic basket of items that we all use. So we've got milk, bread, fruits, vegetables, cereal, tea bags, and eggs. And then we compared the prices. And what we actually found was they're very similar. They do price match now. So milk and bread, it was all pretty much the same. Obviously, Aldi is cheaper on some items. And what we did find is the marketing around these shops, we've got club cards for Tesco and Nectar cards for Sainsbury's. Whilst it appeared to be cheaper, again, it's marketing, and Liam will cover this in a later slide. But the supermarkets can manipulate you a little bit to look like the savings are being passed on to you. But basic marketing and pricing structure, which Aldi offers, does seem to be one of the cheapest options when we looked at a basic basket, which will bring us on to Liam's slide.
Yeah, so supermarkets do spend a lot of money, and they do go to great lengths to make sure we're spending more money as consumers. So there are a lot of things that we need to be kind of wary of and looking out for when we do go into the shops. And some of these things are going to include, obviously, looking out for these multi-buy offers that really don't actually save as much as you may think. So they might only be minimal savings. Things like your 2 for 3 meats are a good example of this. So just make sure if you are buying those kind of things that you're checking the dates on them. Oftentimes the dates might not be all that great, and you might end up throwing it away or not using it necessarily. Things like special offers aren't always what we're seeing, as Caroline kind of touched on there. So make sure that you do kind of plan ahead and look at maybe comparing prices at different places depending on which shop you go into, because sometimes those special offers aren't always that great. Misleading packaging is a big one as well. So look for switching to value brands, which are going to save you over the course of a year an awful lot of money. Another thing to kind of touch on as well is the way that the stores are laid out can make it really difficult to make smart choices. So some of the kind of sneaky things that they will do in supermarkets, for example, is where they might place the eggs. So you might find sometimes that they put eggs in what seem like quite random places, but it's to kind of make you go around the store and maybe buy things that you won't necessarily buy. There's also things like putting the fruit and veg at the front of the store, so that when you bought your fruit and veg, you might feel a bit less guilty about buying some of the other treats a bit later on. Putting things at eye level is another example, where they might put things like the most expensive items at eye level, which can make it a bit more difficult as well. So one thing that I would really advise when you do go into the supermarket is make sure you go to the shop with either your meal plan or a list of ingredients, and try your very best to stick to it. And one of the top tips we can give as well is make sure you avoid shopping when you're hungry or you're tired. So when you're either of those things, you can make you much more susceptible to some of these kind of tips and tricks that the supermarket are doing. It's not a great time to be shopping. You might end up spending a lot more money, buying a lot less healthier things as well. So there is an article here which is by Save the Students. So there's a lot of tips and tricks that go into a bit more detail there. So it is in our resources section. So we'll be uploading the resources at the end of the webinar. So if you want to learn a little bit more about some of those things, have a read of that article. So myself, I try and avoid supermarkets. It's not much fun being in a supermarket with a toddler. So I do make sure I kind of stay at home and do my shopping online on the app. So this then does really help me kind of plan ahead and really think logically, rather than being subject to some of these bad decisions when I'm in the supermarket and Alex is kicking off and he wants this magazine or that toy or whatever. So it's good for me just to kind of get a bit of distance from that and avoid all those kind of offers and the 2 for 3 example. So there are a few tips that you can use when you're shopping online. So things like the Aldi price match. So this is a Sainsbury's one. I use Sainsbury's because we've got a shop nearby there, so it's quite good for me to make direct comparisons. But I always make sure I use the price match feature. So for things like chicken breast, a lot of the vegetables are often price matched. Certain common brands are price matched as well. You can also filter anything that you're searching for. You can filter those in terms of the best price and the best offers. So if you've got a Nectar card, or I'd imagine the same thing in Tesco, if you've got a Tesco club card, you can order those results in terms of your offers and Nectar prices. You can also sort the prices from low to high, so you're getting the cheapest things first. which can be quite useful when you're looking for different things. Also, as you're doing this, if you do this over the course of a week, you can save your trolley. It'll automatically save any items you've got in there. So as you're going through the week, if as and when you go, you can put your items into the trolley and you've got an idea of how much you're currently spending. But it's a bit similar to being in the store when you've got those handheld devices that top up for you. But it is quite nice to know because you can save your previous list, upload them, and it'll remember it. And you kind of always got that kind of base budget to work from. I use this on the app. I use that in conjunction with the meal board app as well. So when I'm planning my meals, I can do this while I'm sat in my chair and doing both the online shopping and my meal planning. But like anything, it's not always that easy. There are little tips and tricks that they'll do online. So things like the substitutes you've got to be wary of. Sometimes when you come in there and they've not got that available, they might add something that's a bit more expensive, and because it's at your doorstep, you might just accept it. So you can refuse those. It's your consumer right to reject that, and they'll take it back without charging you. And also, they will, as you're getting to the checkout, they will remind you of things that you might have forgotten. So things that you've bought in the past that you may need to add to your shopping, or they might give recommendations based on what you've shopped. So try and avoid those as well, and try and stick to what it is that you've got in your trolley. So yeah, I quite like using that because it kind of avoids me doing things when I'm tired and a bit hungry, maybe shopping and buying things I don't necessarily need. But that's kind of the key. So if you are shopping either in store or online, make sure that you do stick to what it is that you're buying and you don't go overboard. Hand you back to Caroline.
It really interested me, this section, when I did a little bit of research on this. And what we tend to throw away is 6.6 tons of household food waste a year, which costs the average household of £60 a month. And these are often foods that could have been eaten. And the things that we waste the most are things like bread and bakery products, vegetables, salads, drinks, and prepaid meals, and meats, fish, dairy products. So use by dates doesn't always mean eaten by dates, and food can be frozen, so the life can be extended beyond the use by date. So if you follow the instructions on the package carefully, we can make sure that you preserve some of this food, and let's cut down some of that monthly spend, that £60 a month on the waste foods, by using that freezer. Meal planning will help with this, like we've discussed, and planning meals in advance. So let's look at some ways that the food industry has come up with ways to reduce waste, but also to help the budget as well. So we've got coming up now a company called the Company Shop. Now, the Company Shop helps lead in redistribution of surplus food and household waste. So it enables the biggest retailers to be able to get all the food and logistic providers together, and they use surplus stock that food may have been about to go off, and they stock it in here and they sell it at really reduced prices for its members. So I've made a small video here, and Liam will just play it. And I've just searched the place on my phone just to show you how easy it is, and the information that the Company Shop provides you. Everything can be found online, including where its locations are. So they are up and down the country. You'll see some of the locations here. And online, you've got their contact number, the opening times, and where they're located. And then they've got some different information on... Oh, great. Somebody's just put this on in Long Eaton. That's great. And then, so it's means test. So there's some rules for membership as such. So NHS workers, it's benefits means tested, charity workers, FMCG manufacturing and logistic workers can shop here. And then there's armed forces and services such as police, fire, prison and support services can all get a membership card for here. And then there's lots of information on there. And then I've put a little video together just to see what it's like. So you get your membership card and then you scan in. And then I just wanted you to see how cheap the prices were. Now, this isn't the most diverse of products. We've got some cereal there, but it's just an example to show you how much it's reduced. They sell fruit, vegetables, salads, again, all at discounted prices, meat and poultry, and everything really. You just need to check the dates, but again, you can use the freezer for those. So that's one option. And then the next one we've got is another app called Olio. Again, these all surprised me when I did the research, and I thought these were fantastic. So Olio is, if you have access to a mobile phone, it's a mobile app that is designed for sharing, giving away, and borrowing or lending things to people in your community for free. And it does this by connecting neighbours with spare food or household goods. And they can advertise this for those people who are willing to go and pick it up. And here's an example of how to use it on your phone. So there's my app on the phone, the Olio app. Now, I've looked up in my area. So this lady she's giving away these items. And this was about 2 miles away from me. And you needed to collect it by 10:30 that evening. I think I was searched about 9 o'clock. So I had a window of an hour and a half to go and pick up these items. And this lady was actually giving away quite a varied items of, I think it's just slowed down the video there, but she had different meats, different vegetables, carrots. So you would just tell her that you're coming to pick them up and then pop and go and get those. And this is up and down the country, and there's all sorts on there. If you go on at different times of day, there's different things available, and it's just what's there. And like I say, it's all free, completely free. And you can also give your own stuff away on there as well. If you were going on a holiday and you had lots of items, you can pop it on there and someone can come and pick it up for free as well. So that's one option. And then another one was the Too Good To Go app, which is on the next slide. So again, I thought this was really cool, and I have used it, and I'll tell you what my experience was with it. But the Too Good To Go app provides solutions, again, to reduce waste by being budget friendly. And the foods that are offered are a third of the original prices. So the app allows you to explore shop and restaurants local to you that are giving away something called a surprise bag, which is foods basically that are going to go to waste. So it usually has today's date on them. So I've recorded a brief video of how to look for those items. Again, you can see the app there, the Too Good To Go app. So if Liam will just press play. And again, it's super easy. So you can locate where they are. So they're within. So I looked, so there, there's 17, 21 locations, 20 locations, all within my area. And they have surprise bags, which you can order. So you can reserve the bags. So here, for example, I think there was 4 bags left here. You reserve one. I paid for it on my phone there, and then it was £4, and then it was ready for me to collect between a certain time. And then it updates you with text messages to say when it's ready. And then you just go in, you've got a barcode on your phone, and then you can collect your surprise bag, which could have anything in it. So here we've got, on the left-hand side was a picture of somebody had put up of the items that they'd received. Now, this was at the cooperative, and it was quite varied. I was impressed with this haul. They had some meats in there, and some salads. Oh, that's great. Olivia's used them before and she thought they were good. And some bakery items. And then this on the right-hand side was the one I got. Now, I paid £4 for this, and I got some burgers, pasty. That was a pasta salad, and then pasta, and then there was a dessert there. Now, it wasn't the best nutritionally balanced bag, I'll have to admit, but it was an Asda concession in a BP garage at the top of my road. It was literally 2 minutes walk away. So what I did with these was I padded them out with some cheap tinned vegetables, and had some salad items in, so I could make it more nutritionally balanced by adding cheaper items to it. And it also spreaded the meals out. So the burgers and the pasty I put in the freezer because it was on that date, and I've used them since and put some vegetables with them and a salad with the burgers, and then padded out some of the other things. So yeah, I really liked this. I found it very easy, and I didn't feel shy or anything when I went into the shop. They were all prepared and organised. So now we've looked at the ways to save money in the kitchen and outside of the kitchen. Let's look at some exercise ideas to save some money there.
Okay, yes. So that's kind. So with our exercise on a budget section, obviously we can appreciate that sometimes that exercise can be a little bit intimidating for some. So the kind of big kind of message to kind of get across is that the hardest thing about getting started is actually getting started. So we're going to look at little ways in which we can just start to look at boosting our physical activity. So this is a graph here from the Chief Medical Officer's guidelines on physical activity. I think one of the big points that can sometimes get missed when it comes to looking at physical activity guidelines, there is no minimum amount of physical activity required to achieve health benefits. So for the more exercise that you're doing, the better, but there is no minimum dose. So just anything and something is better than nothing. So a really good kind of starting point is to aim at least 10 minutes. And those 10 minutes across the day can be spread out. So you can look at putting little chunks of exercise throughout your day, or little bite-sized nuggets of exercise that can, over time, obviously will accumulate, and you'll start to see the benefits of that just by doing those at home. So in our next slide, we've got a little video here, which is an app called Derby Vitality. And this is a really useful app for looking at things like exercises. They have actually the full workouts on there, but they also just have little exercise, which is can go like the description of them. You can see the exercises and you can do those. So we have a video here of Emma, who's about to demonstrate some of these exercises from the Vitality app. And what obviously the point here is that you can do these just at home. There's obviously no cost to these. You can do these if you just sat at home. If you work from home, sometimes it can be difficult to get the time to do any kind of exercise. So just incorporating some really kind of basic exercise that you can do just to reduce that amount of time in a sedentary position or just sitting at home can be really useful. So these are just kind of some of the examples that we've got. We've got some others coming up as well. We've also got a guest appearance here from Emma's cat at the bottom. But the kind of the main kind of takeaway from these exercises and these things that it can just be done at home. Even just the kind of the smallest thing is going to benefit you. And obviously you can start to progress onwards from there as well. Okay, so we do have in the resources a link to the Derby website where you can download all these guides and all these workouts. There's plenty on there that you can download, which we'll upload at the end. Another really good resource is the NHS website. So if you just put in the NHS exercise section, there's all these different kind of areas where you can look at exercises. So obviously we've got some really good kind of seated-based exercises. There's some strength-based exercises. There's also things like the Walking for Health and the Couch to 5K things that will be on the NHS. But these are really good visual guides, and they do give you a detailed breakdown of how to do each of these exercises at home. So these can be at work as a really good introduction to doing some strength-based work at home, obviously for no cost whatsoever, without too much of a intimidating kind of way of thinking about doing. You've got to do a certain amount of exercise all the time. Just introducing small bits can be really beneficial. So if you wanted to kind of look at progressing your exercise and your physical activity, there's lots of free apps and 3 things that you can be doing to accommodate that. So we have things like your walking apps. So we've got the solo walks, the geocaching app, the Pokemon Go if you've got kids, or if you've got a family, if you want to try and make it a bit more exciting to go out for a walk. So I really like this time of year. It's a lovely time of year to be going out walking. If the sun's out, you've got all the different colours. If you've got nice routes near you, if you're lucky enough to have those, it's great just to kind of implement some walking into your routine. Those a bit further along with the physical activity, there's apps that you can do to start running. So you've got the Couch to 5K, which is a brilliant app. If you've got your phone, it tells you when to start walking, when to start running. It's a really good introduction to running, so it can help when you kind of boosting it if you've been a while out running, or if you want to start running. It's a really good thing that I'd really recommend to do. There's the group health walks app, so there's Ramblers. So this is a really good one to look at any walking groups that might be in your area. So obviously walking is a really, really good way to kind of get that cardio fitness up there. And it's obviously free to do. You can go for a walk anywhere. Obviously for those that are also running as well as the Park Run app or the park runs that you can follow. So you can go online and just register for those. They're in parks across the country. They've been a massive success over the last 10 years or so, I think it is. All your scores are recorded in there, all your time. So it's great to kind of keep an eye on that and how you're progressing. So I'd really recommend doing a park run if you're at that running stage. There's other kind of a wide variety of apps as well that you can be doing if you're doing a bit more of a wide variety of exercise. So there's the Down Dog app, which is a yoga-based app. Obviously YouTube, which is a free app, which you can find all sorts on YouTube. Just have to be kind of careful about who it is that you're following, or some of the workouts might be a bit outlandish or a bit challenging. So just kind of look at those beginner kind of workouts if you're getting new to it, or looking for those YouTube apps is obviously a really good way to vary up your exercise as well. Anyone that has an indoor bike at home or anything exercise-based equipment at home, they will have videos on there where you can go around a different scenic routes, and you can put on your phone while you're doing that. It can be really useful. We talked about the Derby app. There's the Fit app as well, where you can get your workouts. Obviously, just doing a bit more around the house as well, just these neat exercises. So these non-exercise activities can also boost your calorie expenditure, increase your activity, and boost your fitness as well. And then using like an exercise planner can also be really helpful, particularly if you're tying that into your meal planning and you're looking at getting some stuff organized, and you can also use an exercise planner as well. And then we also have our ABL sessions. So Our ABL virtual session is obviously free to go, so you can go to as many as you like. All you have to do is just book through whoever it is that's your key work. If you're with ABL as a client, we can book you into those. These obviously varying all the time. We are looking currently to make some tweaks to our physical activity offer. So we will put on new classes coming up. But if you want to go to any of those, they are free. They're all virtual, so you can do those at home. In certain areas, we also have our health walk. So this is picture on the right-hand side. It's a lovely day where they've gone out for a health walk in Oldham. So we typically go around Alexandra Park. So that's Julie and the clients who are out for that walk there. So we will have those walking groups in other areas as well. So wherever you're based, just get in touch to find out if you've got a health walk going on that week. Our ones in Oldham are weekly. And then just to kind of summarize with some of our top exercise tips. And so make sure whenever you start an exercise, just to start off small, and you can build gradually as your fitness improves. So to do that, just kind of think about working on some short-term goals that are suitable for your current fitness level. And just bear in mind that there's no minimum amount that you're going to get a benefit from. So just doing a little bit is obviously going to be really beneficial. Another kind of tip that you can look at is performing exercise at the time of day where you have the most energy. So for those that might be early risers in the morning time is really a perfect way to maybe go out for a walk or look at doing some home-based exercises. If you find that you're a bit more energetic in that mid-afternoon time, then you can obviously do your exercise then as well. I think the most important thing to think about when it comes to doing exercise is to try and find something that you enjoy and makes you feel good. So this can be anything from dancing to like your favorite music, taking up a new hobby, so bowling or fishing, or maybe even arranging a walk with your friend as well. So just trying to find something that you're going to enjoy makes it much less of a chore, much more likely you're going to stick to it, and obviously you're going to benefit from that going forward. So they'll be our main exercise tips going forward for you. So we're now going to hand you over to our virtual health coach Laura. So she's going to talk you through some well-being tips on a budget. So this is a pre-recorded video, so Laura's not here, but if you do have any questions, pop them in the chat box and we'll do our best to answer them as we go along. So this is around about 10 minutes of the webinar. So we'll get that played now. We did have a little bit of an issue with the sound. I've tried to put it up as high as it possibly can go.
Hi, my name's Laura and I'm going to be running you through the well-being.
Alternate the sound on your device. Just make sure that that's turned up to a maximum as well. And we'll let Laura carry on.
Part of this webinar. My colleagues have already touched upon things to do with your nutritional well-being, your physical well-being, and also your financial well-being, because obviously we're looking at being on a budget. And I thought it was just important to kind of highlight how those are 3 areas of our well-being, but there are many other areas that we need to take into consideration. You might have seen images on the screen, like on the screen before. They might have been slightly different, but ultimately they're all just showing us that we have these multiple dimensions that we need to think about and drive awareness for. And if we were to rate each area out of 5, what would we give it? 5 being absolutely smashing it, nailing it, couldn't be better, and 1 being actually I'm really struggling in this area. How would you rate those different dimensions of well-being for yourself? Do you have one area that gains a lot of focus and is a big priority for you? And are there any areas that maybe need a little bit more care and attention? It's really important whilst you're kind of reflecting on that to remember that these different areas aren't separate, that they do intertwine and affect each other positively and negatively. So for instance, your physical well-being is affected by your nutritional well-being, is affected by your emotional well-being, your social well-being, etc., etc. So all these things we're going to look at kind of link a lot of those areas together and influence multiple dimensions of our well-being all at once. So first off, yoga, meditation and breath work. Now you might have tried these before, you might be a pro, or you might have decided actually that's not for me. If it's not for you, that's completely fine. You've got to figure out what works for you. And these are just suggestions at the end of the day. However, what I would suggest with these 3 is that if you find it hard, if you felt like you weren't doing it right, that just remove that pressure, because these are meant to work for you. Like you're meant to find the thing that makes these beneficial for you. And there's lots of different kinds of yoga out there, lots of different kinds of meditation. So if you found one that maybe wasn't quite right for you, that's fine. Doesn't mean all of them won't be. And these are really good at helping our physical well-being, mental well-being, emotional well-being, social well-being. So they are worthwhile kind of persevering with, being a bit patient with, and practicing, because they are mindful practices after all. There might be classes in your area that you can attend, but obviously they usually cost money, so it depends what your budget is. Again, with the apps, they usually cost money, usually a monthly subscription. But apps do tend to have a free trial that it might be worth just sampling to see if you can connect a little bit more with these practices. YouTube, however, is a fantastic free source with loads of free content for you to access. There's a little bit trial and error with YouTube, I will admit. So you might try someone's yoga class on YouTube and not really like it. You might try someone else's and absolutely love it. So do trial and error. Don't give up if you kind of listen to one that you're not a fan of. Breath work, I just wanted to touch on slightly separately and give you something now that you could take away for free, because we breathe all the time. So it is completely free breath work. And breath working, if you're not aware, really helps us to ground ourselves, connect with our bodies, get out of our heads, and kind of calm down our central nervous system. So box breathing is a great place to start, and that is basically where you breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and hold for 4. So you're making that nice box with your counting as you're breathing. You can play around with the numbers and everything like that as you get more used to it, but it's absolutely free and you can do it wherever you are. Really good if you suffer with things like anxiety. 1 minute of breath work, you'll see some benefit. 3 minutes of meditation, 10 minutes of yoga. You don't have to spend absolutely ages doing these things either. Walking in nature is our next one. So you've already spoken a little bit with my colleague around how walking is a great free resource for our physical health. If we add some nature into that, you're laughing, because nature has so many positive effects on our mental and emotional well-being especially. And there's lots of research out there for that. One activity that I wanted to offer to you that again is completely free is the 5 senses activity. So whilst you're out walking in nature, kind of coming into your own presence and thinking about one thing that you can see, one thing you can smell, hear, taste and feel. And again, what that does is connect yourself to what's around you as well as to your own kind of body, getting out of your head. Another great area to do this is while you're eating. So working on those 5 senses whilst you've got the plate of food in front of you slows you down and allows you to enjoy that experience a bit more, and obviously helps your nutritional well-being at the same time. The next mindful practices that we're going to look at, because these are all mindful practices so far, journaling, gratitudes and affirmations. Now, again, what I would say with these, similar to the yoga, meditation and breath work, is if you've tried them and thought, no, that's not for me, or if you've kind of never tried them because you thought they wouldn't be for you, it's okay to try and realise that no, they're not. But it's also okay to try and realise, yes, they are, or to try again and finally let it click. They are completely free, and there is a lot of research out there that shows how beneficial these things are. Journaling, you might have to buy yourself a journal, a book of sorts to write things in. But other than that, it is no cost to do these 3. And it's about practicing. It's not about finding perfection, about figuring out how to make it work for you. So let go of pressure, let go of, am I doing this right? And just explore, really. Building genuine connections. So we've kind of already spoken a little bit about some things that will help us build genuine connections with ourselves, because that is really important. And if you are someone that struggles to, say, be alone in your own company, I would suggest doing these mindful practices that we've spoken about already to help build that connection with yourself. We also want genuine connections with other people. This is obviously our social well-being, but largely affects our mental and emotional well-being, maybe even our physical and nutritional well-being, depending on what we're doing with the people that we interact with. So how can we connect with other people on a deeper level? Well, maybe there are some free groups in your local area, maybe hobbies that you enjoy doing that you could share that experience with other people. You could have an at-home date night with your partner. You could have some technology free time with your family. Technology is great to connect us, but it also disconnects us as well. So we've got to be really conscious of that. And the thing is, we might be surrounded by people in a room full of people, but we can still feel quite alone. So pop down the phone, turn off the TV and spend some genuine time talking and getting to know each other on a different level. Morning and evening routines are something that you've probably kind of heard thrown around here and there. They are really, really useful, and I do recommend giving them a go. But what I don't recommend is following someone on social media and feeling complete pressure to cram so much into the first hour of your day and wake up at 5 a.m. every day. If that is something that you love to do, great, go for it. But these morning and evening routines are meant to work again for you. It's personal. So don't try and mimic somebody else. I would suggest just kind of stripping it back, thinking of one thing for your mind that you can do in the first thing in the morning, and maybe a different thing in the evening. So you might do some affirmations in the morning, you might do some journaling in the evening, do something for your body, maybe some stretching first thing in the morning, or maybe you go for a walk, and in the evening maybe you'll do some yoga, or maybe go for a gentle swim or something like that. And for your soul, maybe get out in nature, or dance around, put your favourite song on and have a bit of a boogie, 'cause that's for your body as well. Or I like to have a nice brew whilst I either stand out in my garden taking the morning, or sit by my window if it's raining. But finding something that again is right for you and doesn't overcomplicate it, rather than feeling the pressure to absolutely smash the day within the first hour. And these are really good for productivity, for your positive mindset, and it aids your sleep. So it is beneficial to kind of work on your morning and evening routines. Your environment also really matters. Tidy space, tidy mind. So I don't know about you, but if I am in a bit of a rough place, then my room's probably going to be a mess. So if I tidy my room, it does help me kind of tidy my mind. Try to have specific places for specific activities. For instance, you might, if you work from home, be tempted to work from your bed. Please don't. Please sleep in your bed and work elsewhere. Try to eat at a table rather than on the couch. Like, it does kind of matter where you do your activities. So be a bit specific and cultivate an area that enables you to enrich that activity. So one little kind of thing I just want to give you before I leave you and hand you back to my colleagues is a little mindset shift that I do think is really quite powerful, and that is to focus on taking charge rather than striving for control. And what that means is basically, so many of us kind of get ourselves in a tizzy because we're wanting to be in control of everything. But the thing is, we can never be in control of everything. So we're kind of setting ourselves up there. Whereas if what we do is empower ourselves to take charge of our actions, our reactions, our responses and interactions with the world, then we're more likely to feel kind of happier and actually feel more in control, ironically. So if you can, focus on taking charge rather than striving for control, and see the benefits that mindset shift has for you. But thank you very much for listening. I will pass you back now, and enjoy the rest of the webinar.
So yeah, if we do have any questions for Laura, we'll be putting a follow-up post on it on social media, so keep an eye out for that, where you can ask Laura any direct questions as well. So just wanted to kind of reiterate that message. I think it's a really nice way to tie things together, so you focus on taking charge rather than striving for control. So any of the tips that today that you might resonate with, you might be more inclined to use than others. Find the thing that kind of works best for you, and obviously if you kind of implement it in stage rather than trying to do everything at once, can also really help as well. So we'll kind of take the things that we've kind of given you here, hopefully with the thing that you guys want to work on most, maybe. So that is the end of our webinar. So we've got all our resources here. So I'm going to pop this in the chat box now, so that you'll be able to upload it. We'll also be staying around for obviously for the next 10 or 15 minutes for any Q&As. Any questions that you may have, feel free to put those in the box and we can go through those. So I'll just quickly pop those in the chat box for you.
Good to see some people have tried some of the apps, Liam, you know, and the shop that we suggested. It's great that some people are using those resources and they found them really good as well. It was a good comment. Bernie said she started to put a handful of red lentils in a pan when making chili and spaghetti bolognese to hide vegetables and pulses from her grandchildren. That made me laugh. We always put some bits and bobs in there. It's also a cheaper way of padding things out, so that was a great suggestion.
Yeah, good way to get an extra bits of pieces in there as well. Yeah, so the question that will be today, yeah, so it's been recorded, so it'll be going on to our YouTube channel. So it does kind of take a couple of weeks. We'll keep an eye out for that. Like I say, we'll be following up with a post on social media as well. So we'll put those resources in the comment section for that. There is a PDF that's gone into the chat with all these resources that are currently on the screen. So all the links to the common things that we've been through, just to quickly run through some of these. And so the Eat Well for Less digital program is a really good one to look at. There's a Jack Monroe book, which is really good. And obviously the NHS and any kind of BDA resources are also really good as well. There is a question in there about Hashimoto thyroid issues. Okay, so from a kind of a nutritional point of view and from an exercise point of view, it's obviously it's important that you kind of take it, if you are looking to start exercising, obviously try to take things slow and obviously have a conversation with your GP, and that kind of goes for any other kind of health conditions as well. When it comes to things with your thyroid, it's best obviously following the medical advice best. So making sure that you're having those conversations with your GP, that they are continuing any monitoring things, and just kind of bearing in mind obviously the best kind of position to kind of talk with those people, or the kind of best people place to kind of give that information are things like general practice for doctors or a dietitian, ideally for something like a thyroid issue that's like a recognized condition with that. From a nutrition point of view, it's making sure that you kind of do stick to those kind of basics and getting plenty of fruit and vegetables in your meal, and making sure you're kind of following a regular meal routine as well. Anything you'd add at all to that, Caroline?
Yeah, very similar to what you were saying. So an autoimmune disease such as this, the recommendations would be to eat well, a well-balanced, nutritious meal, adopt a healthy lifestyle, try and include some sort of activity and exercise, try and maintain healthy sleeping patterns, and to try and manage stress, which kind of links into Laura's wellbeing suggestions as well.
Okay, so don't like any other questions there, so we'll finish there. Thank you again for joining tonight. And like I say, keep your eyes peeled for those follow-up messages. And yeah, thank you all for joining.